Riprap. Everybody know what riprap is? Those who don't. It's good stuff. Catch a lot of fish on it.
Lose a lot of gear.
We're going to talk about how to avoid that. Riprap is a man-made structure, usually along a road or a train, and it's used to prevent deterioration. So when you read an article that says riprap, what they're talking about to visualize in your head, you can see a highway. You see it a lot when you drive to the Columbia going down to Portland. Anytime the road or railroad gets close to the water, you'll see big chunks of boulder. It's where they blew it off to put it in. They drop it in. Keeps erosion out. We'll talk to you about how to use it when we get to the other schools. Structure versus cover. I get yelled at a lot about this one because when I'm in the heat of battle and talking on the shows, I mess it up, and I do mess it up. Cover, vegetation, a dock above, a tree in the water, that's cover. Structure is the makeup. I was running along a big mud flat and there was huge boulders in there. That's structure. There was a sunken boat down there. A lot of guys will refer to that as structure. Something down below, not necessarily up above. Sunk. That's the difference. You heard me talk about the percentage triangle, correct? Heard me talk about it? Just to let you all know, we just did a DVD on it. I'm trying to get you to buy it. It'll be out in about a month, if Mickey gets it done. Okay, here's a quick overview of it. Took me an hour on the DVD just talking about this. Here's what it is. Typically a point, whether it be under the water or above. Got a big bay. When you look at a map, your topographical lines do something like this. Out here they're nice and tight, and here they start getting wide. This tells me I've got a good spawning flat. Where these get tight to this inside turn, which is another terminology, this is the percentage triangle. We're going to learn about this the next seminar. That's what it is. It's where the contour lines start to spread away. The wider they are, the flatter the descent. If I drew that step on a topographical map, they'd be very tight, right on top of each other. If I drew it walking out, they'd be real wide. That's what it is. Where the narrow lines spread out. Base of the triangle is at the top where they're the tightest. The bottom is where they start to spread. Inside turn. In-fisherman uses that terminology a lot. What is an inside turn? If I'm driving a race car down through this road, I make a turn, that's an inside turn. If I go out around that point, that's an outside turn. Inside turn just happens to be where the base of the percentage triangle for us starts. That's why it works so well. Simple? Like I said, we're going to cover this stuff tomorrow, guys. I don't want you to think I'm ratting through this thing trying to...
Next week.
Next week. Sorry, guys. Man. I got a hole in my back, and Mickey runs my mouth when we're on film because I don't know what I'm talking about. I always screw up, don't I, Mick? A shelf. Simple. Usually reservoirs have shelves. Lake Roosevelt, famous for them. A shelf or a plateau. Something underwater that does that. Usually what happens, because the reservoir drops, it erodes away, then it fills up. There's our shelf. Fish utilize them a lot. We're going to talk about it. Have you ever heard, I was fishing a spot on a spot, and the guy's on TV. You ever heard that? What does that mean? Whew, spot on a spot. If I take you up to Priest Lake, and we get out on my spot, I say, guys, we're on the spot, but we're not at the spot yet. You know, this guy's nuts. Seth told me to fish humps, shelves, ridges, but there's a spot on a spot. Maybe we're at an inside turn, but we're not quite to the spot. What that may be, just like when I fish at Priest, I'm on the spot. There's fish through here, kind of spread out. But there's a spot on this spot where there's a big rock pile. That's where they live. So you're there, but you're not quite. The only way you find those is with your electronics, paying attention. Spot on a spot. I may be fishing an inside turn, and all of a sudden it goes, using another weird word, I'm in an inside turn, and I go from gravelly bottom to chunk rock to big boulders. Well, I know this is the base of the triangle, it's an inside turn, and all of a sudden I transitioned from bottom composition of sand to chunk rock, mud to sand to chunk rock. A transition. That transition now becomes my spot within that spot, because I'm kind of there, but I'm not quite there. It's falling back to that 90% of the fish live in 10% of the water. Spot on a spot. Transitions. Transitions are not just makeup changes in the composition of the bottom. I get it all the time. Seth, when you go out and you walleye fish at night, we can't see the shoreline. That's because I don't want you going to my spot. The biggest reason is I can go there at night and I know where those spots are at. Chad went with me. You fish a 100-yard spot all night long and you wait for them to get there. It's a spot on a spot because it's within a percentage triangle and it's a transition in bottom composition from sand to rock. Spot on a spot. Transition. Percentage triangle. See that all in one explanation. A cup versus a crack, and I don't mean plumber because I used to be, don't ask me. A cup versus a crack. Dorshak Lake, lots of cracks. Fish like them. What is the crack? Crack is caused, typically in reservoirs, the only time you're going to see it. You have to use your mind to find it in a lake. Lake Roosevelt, you find them on the Spokane Arm a lot. When the water's down, they're caused by springs. You know the drop shot DVD where we're catching the big walleyes? Next time you watch that, look in the background, you're going to see them. What you'll see in the background is just the shoreline. That's just fishing the shoreline. What's the deal? And if you look real hard, you're going to see an area that looks like this. And it's kind of got some green stuff on it. And it's kind of all muddy and sandy right here, and it's gravelly right here. That's where a spring runs out. It's a small creek channel, tiny. And it runs out underneath the surface. And they like to lay in those. They like to spawn in those because it's clean gravel. Dorshak, you go down to Dorshak, lots of little creeks running in. One bay looks like this. Whoops, I got it on the floor now. One looks like this. When the water's down low, you got a pretty good little creek running in here. It's all clean. It's big chunk rock up in here. And then as it gets out of the system, it's kind of loose rock, gravel. That 6-pound, 2-ounce fish, if you look in the background, you'll see this spot right here. Because underneath me, those cracks are running underneath us. And those fish laying them. A cup, if you're on a flat, looking down on top of it, it can be a spawn in a spot. Lake Roosevelt, mouth of the arm. On the point side, there is one of these. It runs out. I see all these boats parked out there. There's this one guy that killed them all day long. He found the cup. It's like a little bay underwater, small. They love them. How do you find it? Pay attention to your electronics.
Draw that like you would be on a graph.
If you, what it would be, Mark, if you were traveling, looking down, and you're looking down, what you're going to see, and you have to pay attention as you're working the graph, you're going to be following the bottom, and then it's going to start to get deeper. Because what's happened is you're traversing it. It's going to get deeper. So what you have to do, anytime you start across and it starts getting deeper, the first thing I do, I start turning the boat this way till I get back on it. And then I start really paying attention. And I follow it. I follow it to see if it's going to do this or if it's going to come back. Because if I start in, all of a sudden it starts getting shallower, I start turning back out. And with your GPS, which people never use, what I've done is I followed it and I just mapped it. Now all I do is put my trail on, spin around, I got a pink line, there it is. Topographical maps, you can find them. That one down at Roosevelt, you can find it. There's a lot of them like that. You have to percentage fish. If I went out and didn't pay attention to what I was doing, I would never make one show. We have to get out, we have to make the show, we have to get back, we have to edit it, we have to make another one. I don't have 6 camera guys, 10 editors. Randy, Mickey, and myself. For years, Mickey and myself. I have to believe in that thing. Got to pay attention to it to find these. Transitions we covered. Moon phases. You watch the night walleye, correct? What do I always say? Moon phase. Not going to tell you how it relates. I'm going to tell you what you're looking at because we're going to cover that. When you look at a moon phase and you go in and you put your moon phase calendar up, it's going to say 57% waxing. What is that? That's the percentage that the moon is full, which if you pay attention, you will see 3 to 4 or 5 days before, you will learn your percentages of when I need to be out night walleye fishing or night bass fishing. Waxing means I am coming to full. Waning means I am leaving. A waxing moon rises faster or earlier than does a waning. I got to get out early because it's waxing up to, which means it's going to come up earlier. I got to get out later. I can have dinner with the wife because it's a waning moon. It's not going to come up for another hour. Waxing versus waning. Very important. Let's make sure we got it here. Barometric pressure. I get it asked all the time. When's the best time I should go fishing? Never, because if you wait around for it, you might as well forget it. Guys, you got to fish every day. Every day that you can. You go to the bank, you get a loan, you take out $1 million. You start a production company. It's a good idea, trust me. What it is, barometric pressure is the weight of the air above you pushing on you. Just so that you know what you're talking about when you're out with your buddies. It's very bright, it's very sunny, there's not a lot of wind blowing. Typically the fishing is bad because the pressure is at its highest possible point. Transitions in temperature or barometric pressure is usually when fishing is best. When it starts to either rise, which is not as good, or when it's been high and it starts to drop. If I lay on you and you fight and you, oh gosh, and I get off of you, you're going to be hungry. That's an over-exaggeration, but I've been pushing on you. Fish are sensitive. When you go out and it's cloudy, like that big storm we had come through, that's low pressure. Low pressure generally means warmer air, which allows it to rise, which allows it to expand. When it gets so high, it starts to cool and condense. The water vapors condense, and it either becomes really cloudy, or it rains, or it snows. Notice how every time when one of these big fronts comes in, the next day it's 37 degrees. But when it's bluebird skies out there, it's cold. That's why. High pressure is pushing down, not allowing it to rise up, condense, it's clear out. The importance of that is not that you're going to go be chief meteorologist for KHQ. It's that you understand how you need to fish. If the pressure, if I call you up and yesterday it was high pressure and I said we're not going, because I don't go unless it's perfect, which is a lie. But I said, hey, I know you only have this certain day. It's going to drop. Pressure's going to drop. We've got a front coming. Let's get out tomorrow. When that pressure starts to drop, you can get out there and fish aggressive. They're feeding. They'll eat things moving fast. They're aggressive. I got to pack it away. When it gets to be high pressure and fishing gets slow, we need to finesse fish, aka the drop shot. Why does the drop shot work so well? Because an active fish will eat it, or an inactive fish will eat it. It's not predicated on what's happening above you because you're constantly finesse fishing. Fair weather, typically good fishing, stable. The front comes through and it's been low pressure and it come up just a little bit, but it stayed stable. Stability is okay. You may have to experiment with your techniques, but you get them to bite. But I know all of you have been out there and said, man, they were biting like crazy today. If you went back and looked at the barometric pressure, it was more than likely dropping. More than likely dropping. So understand your conditions. Don't not fish because it's not perfect. Adapt to it. Be aggressive when it's dropping. Finesse when it's been cloudy and just kind of nasty for a while. Finesse. If it's been high pressure for a while, finesse. But any of those transitions, you can get a little more aggressive. Chad and I went out, just to give you an idea, he took me out to Hayden Lake. December 10th, cloudy overcast day. There was ice floating on Hayden Lake. What are we doing out here? Bass fishing. Water temperature was a balmy 39 degrees, and we caught largemouth. Crazily, there was nobody out there. You can fish all the time. You just have to make them bite. We were reeling so slow, our jerk baits, that the line would freeze and you'd have to kind of go, to pull it through the guides. It's always a good time to fish.